Okay, let us begin by looking at Elizabethan drama and theatre. You will recall that the English drama in the medieval period, was mostly dominated by mystery plays, miracle plays, morality plays, which in many ways and in various ways had religious thematic concerns. Many ways had religious thematic concerns. A good example of a medieval drama is Everyman, which is a morality play and it marked the end of medieval drama, and at the same time ushers us into Renaissance drama or Elizabethan drama. So Elizabethan theatre or Elizabethan plays began as interludes. Performed in the household of John Morton, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury. And Chancellor of England under Henry VII. Examples of the interludes that survived that time are Nature and Lucrece. It should be noted that interludes and morality plays continued to be popular up to Shakespeare's time. So it was not as if immediately we entered Renaissance, they stopped being performed. As it is with the Renaissance, classical convention influenced the development of drama in the Renaissance, in the Elizabethan period. Classical convention influenced the development of drama in the Elizabethan period, as well as its sophistication. Elizabethan plays in the comic mood were influenced by ancient writers like Plautus and Terence. From these writers, English drama derived such elements as intrigue plots. From these writers, English drama derived such elements as intrigue plots, a structure of acts and scenes, type characters like the rascally servant and the cowardly braggart soldier. Type characters like the rascally servant and the cowardly braggart soldier. Comedy was generally taken to be lower in rank than tragedy in the Renaissance and in Elizabethan drama. Comedy was taken to be a lower genre compared to tragedy. And you could also know that, you should also remember that in the classical period, tragedy was valued by Aristotle over comedy. So the idea is sustained. The Renaissance, because here comedy is generally taken to be a lower genre compared to tragedy. The style of the comedy was such that prose was mixed with verse. The style of the comedy was such that prose was mixed with verse. The style of the comedy was such that prose was mixed with verse. The style of the comedy was such that prose was mixed with verse. It also had middle and lower class characters. Who spoke prose, while the highly placed characters spoke verse. In the comedy, middle and lower class characters were likely to speak prose, while the highly placed characters spoke verse. Among the dramatic genre in Elizabethan literature are romantic comedy, which dramatized confusion in love affairs, usually in lovers' identity, which are usually resolved at the end of the play. Romantic comedy, which dramatized crisis, confusion, conflict in love affairs, including identity mix-up among lovers, which are usually resolved at the end of the play. The example is As You Like It by William Shakespeare. Example of romantic comedy is As You Like It by William Shakespeare. Then we also had domestic comedy, which depicts a domestic situation. Domestic comedy, which depicts a domestic situation. Crisis in the home in a funny way. An example is Thomas Decker's Shoemaker's Holiday. Then we have city comedy. City comedy has London as its setting and is made up of high-class characters. City comedy has London, an urban space, as its setting, and is made up of, is peopled by highly placed characters. A good example is Thomas Elizabethan, a chest made in Cheapside. Chest made in Cheapside. Then you have humor comedy. Which is based on character type. Thought to be made by the presence or predominance of a particular fluid or humor in the body. Humor comedy, which is based on character type, thought to be made by the presence or predominance of a particular fluid or humor in the body, which is responsible for an individual's temperament, like melancholic, choleric, splenetic, phlegmatic, and so on and so forth. Humor comedy, which is based on character type, thought to be made by the presence or predominance of a particular fluid, F-L-U-I-D, or humor in the body, which is responsible for an individual's temperament, like melancholic, choleric, splenetic, and phlegmatic. I'll check that again, perhaps for the last time. Humor comedy is based on character type thought to be made by the presence or predominance of a particular fluid or humor in the body, which is responsible for an individual's temperament, like melancholic, choleric, splenetic, and phlegmatic. A good example is Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor. A good example is Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor. A good example is Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor. Then we have tragicomedy. Tragicomedy is a type of drama which combines the features of both comedy and tragedy and ends in such a way that the good characters are rewarded for their goodness, while the evil characters are rewarded for their evil. A good example is William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. A good example is William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. A good example is William Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. Elizabethan tragedy was influenced by Seneca. And his model of Roman goddess Fortuna. Turning her wheel of fortune. And the model of Roman goddess Fortuna turning her wheel of fortune, and in the process bring low those who were high and takes high those who were low, and in the process brings low those who were high. That is the tragedy. It has nothing to do with anybody. It is fated. All right? It's fated. The force is fated. Because of the action of the Roman goddess Fortuna, turning the wheel of fortune. And as she turns the wheel, she brings low those who are high. It should be noted that this idea was also popular in the medieval period with the Wheel of Fortune. This idea was also popular in the medieval period with the Wheel of Fortune. So that the individual's fortune changes as the wheel turns, depending on where the individual is at the moment. Depending on where the individual is hanging at the moment on the wheel. So, in the medieval period, you could find the Wheel of Fortune in the Monk's Tale. In the Monk's Tale. In the Monk's Tale. If you read Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. You read Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. One of the tales, the Monk's Tales, is revolved around the concept of the Wheel of Fortune. If you also read Lidet's Fall of Princes, you also come across the concept of the Wheel of Fortune. Another influence that Senecan drama had on Elizabethan drama, was in terms of the depiction of violent and bloody plots. Depiction of violent and bloody plots. Lot of killings, lot of murder, bloodshed. You see this in some of Shakespeare's tragedies, like Hamlet, like Macbeth. So you could see the Senecan influences in those plays. Senecan drama also influenced Elizabethan drama in the area of rhetorical speeches. The frequent use of ghosts. Among the casts of the characters. The present use of ghosts. It may come in form of witches as well. Another element that Elizabethan drama benefited from Senecan drama was the five-act structure. Another element that that Elizabethan drama benefited from Senecan drama was the five-act structure. The first work to make use of the Senecan model in English drama was written by two lawyers. The first work to make use of the Senecan model in English drama was written by two lawyers by name Thomas Sackville and Thomas Sackville Thomas Norton. Sackville and Thomas Norton. Who wrote Gabado? Or Ferret and Parrot? Who wrote Gabado or Ferret and Parrot? The play was first produced in 1561. The play was first produced in 1561. The play was first produced in 1561. At the Inner Temple in a law school. At the Inner Temple in a law school, and was later acted before the Queen. And was later acted before the Queen. Gabado was written in blank verse. Gabado was written in blank verse. This would later influence other writers like William Shakespeare, who also used blank verse in his dramas. Other writers influenced by Gabado are Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe. Another writer influenced is Christopher Marlowe. It should be noted that Elizabethan drama followed Aristotle's poetics formula. It should be noted that Elizabethan drama followed Aristotle's poetics formula. Which stipulated that the tragic fall should be caused by some error or moral weakness in the protagonist. Which stipulated that the tragic fall should be caused by some error or moral weakness in the protagonist. The fall should involve, the tragedy should involve a fall from eminent success into misery. The fall should involve a fall from eminent success into misery. It should be marked by reversals and discoveries. It should be marked by reversals and discoveries. It should be marked by reversals and discovery. Reversal in terms of peripetia, the reversal is called peripetia. The reversal is called peripetia. Peripetia. And the discovery is called anagnorisis. The discovery is called anagnorisis. So you recall that peripetia means the reversal in the fortune of the tragic hero, which implies the tragic hero's fall. And anagnorisis refers to a sudden revelation or discovery or knowledge that leads to the fall of the tragic hero. Aristotle also stipulated that the tragic hero should be a highly placed member of society. That is a person of high estate. A highly placed member of society. That is a person of high estate. Quote and unquote, better than we. We must be better than us. Better than we. Better than we. A person of high estate who is better than all of us. The tragedy should evoke pity and fear in the viewers or the readers. The tragedy should evoke pity and fear in the readers or the viewers. In the end, there should be catharsis. In the end, there should be catharsis. Meaning that the emotion, the mixed emotion of fear and pity have to be purged through catharsis. Shakespeare modeled his tragedies after Aristotle's formula. Shakespeare modeled his tragedies after Aristotle's formula, but he violated the three unities and rather made use of subplots and comic relief. But he violated the three unities and rather made three unities of action, time, and place, rather made use of subplots and comic relief. And comic relief. Then we also have revenge tragedy as types of tragedy or forms of tragedy. We begin with revenge tragedy. In revenge tragedy, the wronged protagonist plots and destroys himself in the process of getting a revenge. In revenge tragedy, the protagonist destroys himself in the process of getting revenge. A good example is Shakespeare's Hamlet. Here's example is Shakespeare's Hamlet. In revenge tragedy, the wronged protagonist plots revenge but destroys himself in the process. A good example is Hamlet by Shakespeare. Then we also have villain tragedy. So our villain tragedy. We also have villain tragedy. Villain tragedy. Villain, the bad guy. V-I-L-L-A-I-N. Villain tragedy. Villain tragedy is a type of tragedy whereby the hero is a villain. Whereby the hero is a villain. A good example is Shakespeare's Macbeth. Shakespeare's Macbeth. Then we have heroic tragedy. Heroic tragedy. In heroic tragedy, the hero is larger than life. In heroic tragedy, the hero is larger than life. In heroic tragedy, the hero is larger than life. He challenges the limits of the human possibility. He challenges the limits of the human possibility. And in the process ruins himself. and in the process ruins himself. A good example is Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. A good example is Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. The example of a real tragedy is Christopher Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus wants to get knowledge at all costs and get the utmost pleasure from life that life has to offer. And he desires this thing to the point that he exchanges his soul with the devil for a limited term. Then we have the mask. The mask. The mask. I didn't want to laugh today. Okay, the mask. This refers to an entertainment at court. This refers to an entertainment at court. The mask refers to an entertainment at court, combining dance, song, dialogue, spectacle, etc., with extravagant display of costumes and scenery. The mask is an entertainment at court, C-O-U-R-T, combining dance, song, dialogue, spectacle, with extravagant display of costumes and scenery. The mask is usually elaborate entertainment, very rich in costumes and the setting. Then we have history plays. History plays. History plays. History plays. History plays are based on historical events. History plays are based on historical events. And they tend to function as an avenue to reflect on national issues, politics, and power play. They give us the opportunity to reflect on national issues, the dominant issues in the country, the type of politics we play, and the power play between individuals and institutions. The growth and sophistication of Elizabethan drama was made possible by professional actors. The growth and sophistication of Elizabethan drama was made possible by professional actors. The presence of a theater, and an audience was made possible by professional actors, the presence of a theater, and a theater-loving audience. Three things made for the growth and sophistication of Elizabethan drama. 1, professional actors, theater, and theater-loving audience. In the medieval period, plays were acted mostly by amateurs. In the medieval period, plays were acted mostly by amateurs. Plays were acted mostly by amateurs. Later, they were acted by the clergy. Later, they were acted by the clergy as priests. And then pages in a lord's house, pages like PAs, PAGS, pages in a lord's house. There are servants in a big man's house. Later acted the plays. I don't mean by pages. You say, are you a page? Are you somebody's PA or servant? And then later by semi-professional actors. Later by semi-professional actors. These actors were not respectable in status. These actors at this time were not respectable in status. Actors at this time were not respectable in status. They were classified as low lives. They were classified as low lives and people of dubious character who could not be trusted. They were classified as low lives, people of dubious character who cannot be trusted. In 1545, these actors were pronounced by law as idle rogues and vagabonds and were subject to arrest, to be arrested. Okay? So not now that actors are stars. They were classified as idle rogues who did not have anything to do, and vagabonds, and as such were subject to arrest. Because of this situation, most actors attached themselves to noblemen and wore the badges of these noblemen so as to be saved from arrest and prosecution. Because of this situation, most of these actors attached themselves to noblemen, highly placed men, and wore the badges of these men as their servants so as not to be arrested and persecuted. For instance, you have the Lord Chamberlain's men, you have the Lord Admiral's men. This was how they were called. That means those that work for Lord Chamberlain and those that work for the Lord Admiral. Lord Admiral men. Shakespeare once belonged to the Lord Admiral's men. There were some who were called the King's Men after King James. There were some who were called the King's Men after King James. Later, actors were accepted in the court. Later, actors were accepted in the court. As in the court, that means in the king's court. Right? The first theatre was built in 1576 by James Burbage in Shoreditch, outside London. The first theatre was built in 1576 by James Burbage in Shoreditch, outside London. Outside London. Because it was not legal for plays to take place in London, within London. It was built outside London. Plays were acted at high speed. Plays were acted at high speed. Without break in act and scene that we know today. Plays were acted at high speed without break in act and scene that we know today. Plays were acted at high speed without breaks in acts and scenes that we know today. There was no scenery and there were only few props. There were no scenery and the plays made use of few props, PR or PS. There were elaborate costumes. There were elaborate costumes. The plays were performed in the afternoon because there was no light in the evening. The plays were performed in the afternoon. Women were not allowed to act, so the parts of women were played by boys. Women were not allowed to act, so the parts of women were played by young boys. Okay. The Globe was built in 1608. Another theatre. The Globe was built in 1608. Elizabethan attitudes could be seen in the works of writers like Ben Jonson, who believed in classical principles. Elizabethan attitudes could be seen in the works of writers like Ben Jonson, who believed in classical principles of structure and decorum. They believed in the classical structure, the classical principles of structure and decorum. I said that Elizabethan attitudes could be seen in the work of writers like Ben Jonson, who believed in classical principles of structure and decorum. The ideal of the centered, the centered self, the ideal of the centered self, and the balanced moral life. There was emphasis upon learning. There was emphasis on learning. There was emphasis on learning. There was a need to reconcile between classical and native life. There was a need to reconcile between classical and native life. Philip Sidney was an embodiment of the Elizabethan Renaissance man. Philip Sidney was an embodiment of the Renaissance man, or the Renaissance gentleman. He was a courtier, a soldier, humanist scholar, and a Petrarchan sonneteer. He was a courtier, a soldier, humanist scholar, a sonneteer, as a Petrarchan sonneteer, was a literary critic, and a Protestant. He supported Protestant reforms. Philip Sidney embodied, or was a personification of the Elizabethan Renaissance man, a courtier. He was a man of many parts. A courtier, a soldier, humanist scholar, a poet as a Petrarchan sonneteer, literary critic, and a supporter of the Protestant reforms. The end of Elizabeth's reign foreshadows the rift that will eventually plunge the nation into a civil war. The end of Elizabeth's reign foreshadows the rift, R-I-F-T, that will eventually plunge the nation into a civil war. Elizabeth was old, and the hope of a peaceful succession was in doubt. She was unmarried and had no child. She died in 1603, and James VI of Scotland ascended the throne as James I of England. She was old, she was unmarried, and had no children. She died in 1603 and was succeeded by James VI of Scotland as James I of England. And that's how we bring our narration of Elizabethan literature to an end on the introductory note. We will not proceed with the class further, but when we meet again, we will start with Elizabethan prose fiction.